Hi, I'm Alan, 32, and last month I stood in the middle of a dinner party, clicked play on my phone, and watched the room implode. Not from a confession, not from a scandal whispered behind closed doors, but from proof. Crystal clear, high-definition evidence of betrayal, arrogance, and manipulation. That night wasn't revenge. It was justice. And it started with a smile. But before that moment, before the applause stopped and the shouting started, before Alice stormed upstairs and Lillian's eyes filled with betrayal, not sorrow, betrayal, I was just the guy in the room nobody listened to. 3 years ago, I met Lillian at a rooftop bar on a Friday night after work. Mutual friends, too many margaritas, one slow dance under the string lights, and boom, we were a couple. She was bright, witty, the kind of woman who always seemed 2 steps ahead in conversation and 5 steps ahead in planning her career. A strategist. I liked that. At first. The first sign something was off didn't come from Lillian. It came from Oscar. Her best friend since college. Her platonic soulmate. As she introduced him when I met him for the first time, on our 3rd date. He showed up unannounced at the sushi place we were eating, pulled up a chair, and started critiquing my tempura. I thought it was a fluke. It wasn't. Oscar was the ever-present ghost in our relationship. He was there for our anniversaries, our vacations, our fights. Always on speakerphone. Always offering his opinion, uninvited, unwanted. And always with that smug tone that said, "I know better than you. And she knows it too." I'd say something like, "Maybe we should wait to get a dog." And Lillian would go, "Oscar says it's a great time for me emotionally. I'd suggest a different apartment. Oscar thinks this neighborhood is too suburban." He even weighed in on our sex life, once telling Lillian she should schedule intimacy like workouts so the relationship stays functional. I wish I was joking. The part that really burned wasn't that Oscar had opinions. Everyone's entitled to opinions. It was that Lillian treated them like law. If I disagreed, I wasn't compromising. I was being insecure. I was afraid of strong personalities. Lillian would say things like, "You know Oscar just wants what's best for me. Why can't you appreciate that?" Because maybe I was starting to feel like a third wheel in my own relationship. Still, I tolerated it. I was in love, I told myself. I could be mature. I could be understanding. Besides, Oscar had a long-term girlfriend, Alice. Sweet, sharp, quiet. I liked her immediately. She was the only one who ever gave me the sense that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't crazy for being uncomfortable. But everything changed the night Oscar and I ended up alone at that pretentious bar he loved, where the drinks came in smoky glass bulbs and cost more than my weekly groceries. He was already buzzed when I showed up. On his 3rd drink before I even sat down. That's when he said it. "You ever wonder what it's like to cheat and not get caught?" I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. He was dead serious. He started bragging. Not subtle. Full-on confession mode. Mia from the PR team. Champagne. Hotel balconies. Videos. Then, he handed me his phone. I should have dropped it. I should have walked away. But I looked. And what I saw was more than cheating. It was bragging. A man so sure of himself, so proud of his lies, that he airdropped the videos to me. "So you can learn something," he said, grinning. And in that moment, I made a choice. I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I smiled. And I saved everything. Because the man who thought he was untouchable just handed me the matches. All I had to do was wait for the right moment to light the fuse. The Monday after Oscar's confession, I went to work like nothing happened. Ate my sad little desk salad. Answered emails. Smiled at coworkers. All while knowing I had a folder on my phone labeled insurance, a neat little package of Oscar's downfall, zipped and backed up to the cloud. And Lillian? She was radiant. Radiant in the way people get when they think they've won. She kept going on about how Oscar said we should work on communication. And how Oscar thinks we might benefit from a shared calendar. A shared calendar. Like I was a damn Google invite she needed to color code. It wasn't just irritating anymore. It was patronizing. Oscar wasn't lurking in the background anymore. He was leading the charge. And then came the key. I got home one night to find Oscar on our couch. shoes off. Socks on my coffee table. Drinking my beer. He looked up like I was interrupting his evening. Yo, he said, barely glancing at me. Lillian said I could crash here till Alice gets back from her trip. I stood frozen in the doorway. How did you even get in? She gave me a key, he said with a shrug. Emergency access, you know? Emergency access to my apartment. I waited until Lillian got home, sat her down, and calmly said, I want the key back. He doesn't live here. He doesn't contribute. He doesn't respect me. Her response? You're trying to control me. Control. That's the word she always used when I brought up boundaries. Control. Insecurity. Toxic masculinity. As if asking for basic respect was some kind of emotional oppression. She stormed off, called me jealous, and I ended up sleeping on the couch he had just been lounging on. The next day, I got an email at work from Lillian. An email. Not a text. Not a call. An email, with bullet points. Subject: Constructive Conflict Resolution Dinner. Hi, love. I know things are tense, but I think we should have a casual get-together this Saturday. Oscar, me, you, and some friends. Just a chance to clear the air and talk about your concerns. Don't worry, it'll be relaxed. Relaxed? Sure. You know what else is relaxed? Ambushes. She wanted to stage a miniature tribunal in our living room. Put me on display like some petty tyrant for daring to question the court jester she called her best friend. I replied. Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Because by then, I knew what I had to do. Oscar and Lillian thought they were about to deliver the final blow, public humiliation wrapped in friendship therapy. But they'd made one mistake. They made me the villain. And once someone decides you're the villain, you no longer have to play by their rules. That week, I made backups. Transferred files to a flash drive. Ran through the sequence in my head. Meanwhile, Lillian floated around the apartment like she was planning a surprise party. You're going to feel so much better after this, she said. She was right. I would feel better. Just not for the reasons she thought. By Friday, she had even invited 2 more friends. She said it was important to have neutral perspectives. I smiled and said, the more the merrier. Saturday came. I shaved. Wore the sweater she liked. Oscar was already there, of course, with a cocktail in one hand and that same smug grin he always wore when he thought he had the upper hand. They thought I was there to explain myself. What I was really there to do was detonate the room. Oscar was leaning against the kitchen counter like he owned it, laughing with Lillian and her 2 recruited friends, Bree and Sam, both of whom looked like they'd practiced their concerned faces in the mirror before showing up. The vibe? Casual, curated, fake as hell. Wine glasses, charcuterie board, a playlist in the background just loud enough to make confrontation feel civilized. Lillian greeted me with a kiss on the cheek like this was couples therapy, not a loyalty inquisition. I'm really proud of you, she whispered. That was the moment I knew she genuinely believed I was about to confess my sins and beg for forgiveness. For being insecure. For not worshipping Oscar. For questioning why a man with no personal boundaries had a key to our lives. I let them enjoy their smug little dinner theater. We ate. Small talk. Lillian beamed. Oscar made passive digs. Hope the food's good enough for Alan's palate this time. I smiled. Delicious, thanks for organizing. Then dessert. Lillian tapped her glass. Alan wanted to say a few things, she said, eyes full of anticipation. Right, babe? I stood. Reached into my jacket. And calmly pulled out the USB drive. Oscar raised an eyebrow. Bree tilted her head. Sam looked nervous. Thanks for being here, I began. Really? This has been a challenging time. And I've done a lot of reflection. Oscar nodded like a high school principal about to give me a pat on the head. There's someone here I especially need to be honest with tonight, I continued. I turned to Alice, who was sitting quietly in the corner, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Alice, this is for you. Confusion flickered in her eyes. Then I connected my phone to the TV. The screen lit up. And then it started. Oscar. Drunk. Shirt half off. tongue halfway down a woman's throat in a hotel room. Gasps. Another clip. Same hotel room. Oscar pouring champagne. Mia from PR giggling as they clinked glasses in bed. The room fell into silence so thick you could taste it. This is fake. Lillian screeched, springing to her feet. I ignored her. The next slide, screenshots of texts. Oscar bragging about the affair. She has no idea. I'm untouchable. Thanks for keeping quiet, bro. Let's never talk about this again. Oscar leapt to his feet. The chair skidded backward. His whole face drained of blood. You son of a... He lunged. I stepped aside. Oscar, the genius, tripped over the fallen chair and crashed into the side table. Wine glasses clattered. Lillian shrieked. He scrambled up, fists clenched, coming at me like a cartoon bulldog. I didn't flinch. Don't, I said calm and sharp. Not tonight. He swung anyway. A clumsy, drunken haymaker. I blocked it, stepped in, and shoved him hard in the chest. He crashed into the wall, knocking a framed photo to the ground. This, I said to the room, is what he does when the mask slips. Violent. Pathetic. Exposed. Alice sat frozen. Then slowly, stood up, eyes locked on the screen. No tears. No yelling. Just one sentence. How long? Oscar didn't answer. His mouth opened, closed. Then he slumped into a chair like a man who had just watched his own funeral. Alice turned and walked upstairs without another word. The slam of the bedroom door echoed like a gunshot. Lillian spun on me, screaming. You ruined everything! No, I said. Oscar did that. I just stopped covering for him. She was still yelling when I picked up my coat and headed for the door. Oscar sat with his face buried in his hands. Bree was crying. Sam was whispering something about calling a ride. The night air hit like relief. And as I walked away from the wreckage they'd invited me into, I felt it for the first time in months. Not victory. Not revenge. Clarity. They had built their lives together. All I did was turn the lights on. The next morning felt like waking up after a hurricane. Except instead of shattered windows and overturned trees, there were missed calls, angry texts, and one very frosty silence coming from the bedroom. Lillian hadn't slept. She was pacing like a lawyer prepping for a murder trial. The moment I stepped into the kitchen, it started. I hope you're proud of yourself. She spat, arms crossed. I poured coffee. Calm. Unbothered. Already miles ahead of her in this conversation. You humiliated me. You humiliated everyone. Oscar humiliated himself. I said. I just put it on screen. That did not go over well. She launched into a rant about betrayal, privacy, and how dare you weaponize trust. As if I had been the one lying to everyone, sneaking around with my ex, and handing out keys to people who didn't pay rent. That was supposed to be a reconciliation. She shrieked. You trapped us. You're right. I replied, sipping my coffee. I planned it. Because I was done playing defense in a game you and Oscar rigged years ago. She blinked, thrown off by my calm. This is insane. She hissed. You blew up our lives because your ego couldn't handle that I have a best friend. No, I said, setting the cup down. I blew up a lie that's been poisoning this relationship since day one. And then I laid it out, calm, measured, devastating. How Oscar had insulted me in my own home. How she'd backed him every time. How I was made to feel like the problem for asking basic things like, can your friend stop commenting on our sex life? She tried the classic spin move, changing tactics mid-rage. We can fix this, she said softly, eyes glistening now. You went too far, but I know why. It's because you love me. We just lost perspective. She reached for my hand. I didn't take it. You watched your best friend try to swing on me last night after I showed his wife he was cheating, I said. And your first reaction wasn't concern. It was to scream at me. Her jaw tightened. Because you embarrass me. No, I said flatly. You embarrass yourself. I just turned off the filters. She stared at me, lips parted, no words coming out. So I gave her the final line. For weeks, I said. What? For weeks to move out. That's generous, considering what you've put me through. After that, the locks change whether you're gone or not. Her face contorted like she couldn't decide whether to cry or scream. You're ending this? I'm giving myself peace, I said. Call it what you want. She accused me of throwing away the best thing I'd ever have. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. Just turned and walked away. Because it was already over. Had been for months. She just didn't realize it until she lost control of the narrative. That week, the unraveling began. She went quiet at first, like she was regrouping. Then came the texts. The fake casual ones. Hey, picking up groceries, want anything? Or, remember that park we used to go to? When those didn't get a reply, she escalated. You really think you're the good guy here? I hope exposing Oscar was worth destroying me. You're a narcissist. You're sick. And finally, I miss you. I didn't respond to any of it. She tried showing up at my job once, with pastries and a fake smile. Security escorted her out before she reached my desk. Then came the smear campaign. Subtweets. Instagram stories about narcissists who perform love just to betray you, quotes about gaslighting. All vague enough to be deniable, but obvious enough that our mutual friends knew who she meant. I stayed silent. She wanted a war. I gave her a funeral. A quiet, elegant end. No shouting. No tears. Just the steady closing of a door. By week 3, the calm was shattered. Lillian had gone full Greek tragedy. She cried on the phone to mutual friends. Spun tales about my emotional abuse. How I weaponized a misunderstanding to kick her out of her own home. Problem was, people had seen the video. And if they hadn't? Well, they'd seen the screaming, the storming out, and the dinner party meltdown that followed. The narrative was slipping from her hands like sand. And so she doubled down. Instagram got dark. First came the motivational quotes. Healing isn't linear. And, some people never deserved your softness. Then the not-so-subtle jabs. Funny how some men only show strength when they're breaking things. Funny, I thought, how some women only want accountability after the damage is done. The best part? I didn't have to say anything. Her social circle turned into a slow-motion train wreck. Friends started backing away, not because I campaigned, but because she wouldn't shut up. You can only tell the same sob story so many times before people start fact-checking. Meanwhile, Oscar? Free fall. Alice had gone full steam ahead with the divorce. Swift, brutal, surgical. She got the house, the savings account, and custody of the cat. Oscar? Moved into a depressing studio on the far side of town. Started showing up late to work. Rumors swirled. HR encouraged him to work remotely. Translation: don't bring your mess to the office. He tried damage control, too, telling people the videos were out of context, that I'd hacked his phone, that Alice had overreacted. But no one bought it. Even worse? A former client of his who had seen the video decided he wasn't brand safe. That alone probably cost him 5 figures in commissions. Karma moves like a freight train sometimes. Slow to start, but once it's rolling, you don't stand in front of it. Lillian moved in with Oscar, of course. Because of course she did. 2 narcissists with nowhere else to go. They fit together like a car crash. They posted a photo, matching mugs, new apartment caption. New beginnings. I didn't react. I didn't have to. Because the cracks were already showing. According to a mutual friend who still lurked in their orbit, the fights started immediately. Oscar resented her for not defending him more. Lillian resented him for dragging her down. The same tactics they'd used on me and Alice? Now turned on each other. He accused her of sabotaging his career. She called him emotionally unavailable. He'd storm out. She'd lock him out. Neighbors started complaining. Then came the blow-ups. One night, a mutual friend texted me. Bro, they had a fight in the hallway. Cops showed up. She threw his phone. It was everything I'd expected, and none of it surprised me. Lillian and Oscar weren't a love story. They were just 2 people who needed someone else to blame. And now, with no one left to scapegoat, they were eating each other alive. By the time November rolled around, I had stopped thinking about them altogether, until a 2 a.m. text lit up my phone. I thought we could talk. Things haven't been easy. No name. Just desperation. I deleted it without replying. A week later, Oscar sent a DM. We both said things we regret. Maybe we should clear the air? Nope. They reached out 3 more times, each message swinging between groveling and blame. I ignored them all. Because some people don't deserve closure. Some people just need to sit in what they've created. By the time winter faded and spring tiptoed in, the chaos had burned itself out. Lillian was back at her parents' house, trying to brand it as a reset from toxic city energy. Oscar was living in a shoebox apartment with a broken microwave and a lease he couldn't afford. Their downfall didn't come with fireworks. No, it came with mildew and missed calls. A slow rot. The kind they used to project onto everyone else. Meanwhile, I had peace. Real peace. The kind that comes not when everything's perfect, but when the wrong people are finally gone. I changed the locks. Repainted the walls. Moved the furniture around. Little things, but they mattered. The apartment no longer felt like a battlefield, it felt like mine. I went back to the gym, picked up a few neglected hobbies, and reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages because Lillian just didn't vibe with them. Funny how manipulative people always use vibes to isolate you. And then, Alice. 3 months after that dinner, I got a short email. Thank you again for telling me the truth. I'm doing better now. Hope you are too. I sat with it for a while before replying. I am. And I'm glad you are too. If you ever want to grab coffee, let me know. She replied that evening. Coffee sounds great. We met at a little corner cafe downtown. The kind with scratched up tables and mismatched mugs. It wasn't a date. It wasn't anything, really. Just 2 people with shared scars and matching tired smiles. The conversation was easy. No pretense. No trauma dumping. No Oscar or Lillian talk. Just books. Weekend plans. Favorite breakfast foods. Still, there was an unspoken bond between us. The kind forged when you both survive the same house fire, crawl out coughing, and realize you were never crazy, you were just surrounded by people who convinced you that boundaries were flaws. Coffee turned into brunch the next week. Then dinner. Then walks. We never labeled it. Didn't have to. It wasn't about romance. It was about respect. About being with someone who understood that peace isn't just quiet, it's mutual safety. And yeah, eventually, something real started blooming there. Slow. No rush. No drama. Just trust built brick by brick. Someone online once said, "You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick." They were right. But if you're lucky, you can heal with someone who knows exactly how that sickness felt. Do I think Alice and I are endgame? I don't know. We're not rushing to find out. But I know this. I'm not afraid to draw boundaries anymore. I don't feel guilty for asking for respect. And I will never again mistake control for love. Lillian once said she wanted me to be humble. To apologize to Oscar. To grow up and stop acting like I was the victim. But in the end, the only ones who knelt were the ones who thought they were untouchable. Oscar lost his marriage, his job, his reputation. Lillian lost her credibility, her comfort, and her ability to rewrite the story. And all I lost was the illusion that I had to accept disrespect to keep the peace. Now, I have peace for real. And every now and then, I get a little reminder of just how far I've come. Like the time Venmo notified me. Your request to Madison for $6,427 is still pending. Different X, different reckoning. But same lesson. Keep the receipts. Trust your gut. Never let someone shame you for having boundaries. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to turn the lights on. The ones who are hiding will always scatter. Peace out. Alan.